Lisa, thanks for your time. Will you please tell us a little bit about your work experiences?
So I am a two-time graduate from NC State. I graduated with a chemical engineering degree. So I worked as an engineer for a chemical company, and I moved into technical service from there, and then technical sales, and then chemical sales. And then I became a career switcher, like probably many of you, and I moved into IT. I was first a business owner because it was challenging to figure out how to move into an entirely different function. And I was in website development as a business owner. But I didn't really make enough money to support myself. So I found a job as a tech writer. I worked for the state for a couple of years. And then I worked at a supply chain company as a tech writer and evolved into a business analyst. From there, I changed industries to financial services in IT and started as a systems analyst. Then I moved into project management and development management and then director of quality assurance.
So, why did you switch to executive coaching?
I know it's a big change in functions, totally different type of work. When I was leading teams, my absolute favorite part was creating an environment where the people on my teams could thrive. We built a lot of trust with each other, and it led to conversations with team members about their challenges, their disappointments, desires, and what they can do and what are the possibilities for them, and kind of looking at their whole situation and context. When I left my last company, one of my colleagues whispered a little seed into my ear. She said, "You should be a coach." And that was enough of a nudge for me to volunteer at Dress for Success as a career coach. And it was so stunningly rewarding. I knew I had to keep coaching. So I signed up for coach training, and here I am.
So, what's your favorite part about coaching?
Favorite makes it sound like it's just one thing, but I really can't pick just one. Working with students when they get that aha or insight or they take a leap and do something different, and then seeing how that puts them on a entirely new and more exciting trajectory for them, that's big, that's huge. But I can't say it's my favorite because it competes with residency. Like, I get so energized by that event, and I'm not even attending it, I'm staff. I feel like I'm buzzing with excitement watching everyone come in on day one and not really knowing anyone. It's kind of quiet in the room, and by the time they leave 3 days later, they have connected with the program and with the people that they end up staying in contact with, way beyond residency. They see them in other classes, they work together, they collaborate, they learn about industries and types of jobs they didn't know existed, and it just expands their mind. When I have one-on-ones afterwards, I hear that from students. So it's really exciting to watch. And of course, the skills and the knowledge they get from the professors, just kind of the whole package at residency. I just love to see it. My favorite time.
So, how do you help people during residency?
When you come to residency, you don't know anyone. You've been in your online classes and you might know names, but you start connecting names with faces, right? And that's kind of what I get to do. I've met many of you in 2D. I've seen a lot of your names written on a piece of paper for the ones that I haven't met in person. So being able to associate names and faces and that sort of thing, it's really exciting for me. And then when I sit down and have breakfast with you, I ask you and get to know a little bit about you, and everyone else at the table gets to hear it. So you guys get to know each other, just because you're talking to me. So it's fun. It's fun to see that, and we do that again for lunch, and we do it with drinks on the first night. So, yeah, it's great connecting that way.
Lisa, will you please share a few stories showing how you help others?
My specialty is people who want to advance their career where they are. So I have a three pillars framework. When you're looking for a promotion, do you have the skills for the job? Do the right people know that you have the skills? And is there opportunity there? So by far, most of my coaching falls in the second pillar. Do the right people know that you have the skills? And usually the answer to that is going to be a combination of strategy and communication. So yeah, I can give you the first example I'll give you of a student that I worked with. He'd been promised a promotion for a few years, but his managers kept changing and he had to reprove himself every time his manager changed, and his promotion kept getting delayed. So we assessed his situation and we looked at how much visibility does he have within the organization, and he had great visibility with senior management. He actually gave a weekly presentation. So what we did is we updated and worked on his weekly presentation to very concisely align his team's progress with the VP's goals, and rebranded his team in a way that allowed them to increase their reach and impact across the organization. And of course, he got a promotion after that. That's actually going to be the tagline after every one of these is yes, they got a promotion. So the next student I'd like to tell you about, and again, it's communicating. That was the really important strategy here. So this student had been in his tech role for a really long time. He was a high performer and he was trying to move into management, and he'd been trying to move into management for a little while, for about a year. And he was applying, but he wasn't getting the manager roles. And it came to me when there was a perfect opening, but he had actually been told by the hiring manager not to apply. Um, but he had the ability. He knew he had the ability. I could tell he had the ability. So basically, we reframed his language. This was a movement into leadership and management, and that's what the hiring manager was looking for. So we reframed it so that in his interview, he could speak the language of leadership that was already inside of him, and we just brought that out so he could frame it correctly. And yes, he got that role. And then the third student I'll talk about here, it was a combination of strategy and organizational structure and interview skills that we worked on. So once again, it's got that communication and strategy bent to it. So lots of things were moving in his org. People were moving around, and he knew there was opportunity in there, and he wanted to move up as well. So what we did is talk through his whole org structure and did some career pathing about which directions in the hierarchy he might want to move, based on everything in his life, his lifestyle, his work, his desires, his values, all of that sort of thing. And then based on that, created a strategy on who he needed to talk to, what kind of conversations he needed to have with them, and letting them know what his interests were. And then we talked about when he got the interviews, which of course he did, for up and coming roles, what he needed to showcase for the specific role he was interviewing for. And yes, he got a promotion as well.
What do you hope people get from your coaching?
I want you to feel better about yourself and the possibilities than you did when you first came in. It doesn't matter if it's because you're learning something about the landscape of the workplace, or how to communicate your skills, or because of a new way of seeing things or an insight. Especially in that first session that we have, that's my hope, is that you'll walk away, kind of with a fire lit under you, that like, wow, I'm excited about the possibilities ahead of me.
So, what do you like to do in your spare time?
Well, one of the things I like to do, which you probably haven't heard of before, at least not the way that I do it, it's planning. It's a thing. It's like decorative paper planning and digital planning, and it's kind of like planning and scrapbooking your memories all together. So that is one of my favorite hobby things to do, and I love spending time with my dogs and my husband. I would say that my dogs are my favorite humans, except, I remember that they're not exactly humans, but they kind of are to me.
What books do you find yourself recommending most often?
Ah, well, I'm biased. Like, for some reason, my favorite books kind of come up and like, I think this would be really helpful for you, even though there are probably a plethora of other books that could be helpful. One is Culture Code. So if you are in leadership and you're interested in creating a high performance culture, I love that book for it. Absolutely love it. I recommend it to so many people. And then, I switch between some other ones, but and you see me looking backwards, I'm looking at my bookcase. Designing Your Life is great for people who don't yet know what they want to do. And even though it's called Designing Your Life, it is really more about designing your career or designing your work life than it is just your life. I mean, although they're all mixed together. But I think that's great because so many students come in exploration mode, or they're not sure what the MBA is going to bring forward in terms of possibilities. And that is a great framework for your possibilities. And what would be my favorite third book? Um, hmm.
Where can I find the best barbecue in North Carolina, Lisa?
If you want Eastern North Carolina style barbecue, which is the best, I just saw a Facebook post where it explained it just perfect. It was color coded for the United States, and it was color coded in four colors where the barbecue is terrible, where the barbecue is decent, where the barbecue is excellent, and where the barbecue is not barbecue. So, barbecue is not barbecue in Texas because they make it with beef, and everybody knows that barbecue is made with pork. And everywhere else in the country except North Carolina and only parts of North Carolina, the barbecue is terrible. And in Western North Carolina, the barbecue, the red sauce barbecue, that is decent. And then the vinegar barbecue, like Eastern North Carolina, this is you are in best barbecue land in this area. So I would say, if I was going to tell you where to go, start with Cooper's Barbecue if you're here. If you're going east, you could go to Captain Bob's in Hertford, or you could go to Bee's Barbecue in Greenville, North Carolina. Those are another two excellent barbecue choices. So that would be my recommendation. Top three in North Carolina.
What is a frequent challenge that business leaders face from your experience?
Communication. That is probably because it's in every aspect. When I talk about communication, I mean it very broadly. So I mean it in terms of your oral communication, how you say things, what you say. And I guess even more importantly than those two is framing. It's the perspective you're taking when you communicate. And if that perspective is aligned with the message that you want to send, then you will naturally communicate the right way, the way that is most impactful when your framing is aligned with your intention. So I think communication, and that's also visually if you're giving presentations. So when we talked about the student that I worked with in the past, um, you know his intention originally was to communicate a lot of information, and when we reframed, his intention was to communicate to his leadership how their strategy and effective planning and streamlining of operations had helped senior leadership meet their organizational goals. Yeah. So I think communication is the most important.
So, how do you help leaders with those communication challenges during your coaching sessions, Lisa?
What makes it challenging is you have your own context, your own situation, and your own framing through which you see the situation. And what you really want to do is to get in the shoes of the other person and be in their context and see it from their framing, which is really hard to do because you don't know what everything is with respect to their context. You don't know what their manager expects of them and all of that sort of thing. That's the kind of thing that I can help you with, because I think it's very hard. It's hard for you to completely drop your own context and see it through that. And I can help you figure out what their context might be, what some of their challenges might be, enough for you to reframe your communications in a more impactful way.
If you want to meet with Lisa or any of our other coaches, please sign up in 1220 for an appointment or just reach out to Career Services. Thank you.